Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you are doing well. In this video, we're going to be talking about the classic album from Michael Jackson, Thriller, dropped in 1982. If you have noticed on the channel recently, I've been doing some videos where I talk about albums that are, in my opinion, a 10 out of 10. I've been going back decade by decade from the 2000s, 90s, 80s, and we'll continue to go to the 70s and 60s. There has been some disappointment from people in terms of like, I'm surprised that a lot of these records are like ones that I already know about. I apologize if you went into these videos expecting a certain thing. I can do a series where I talk about underrated albums from these decades if you're looking for recommendations of things you haven't heard before. I'm just merely telling you that certain records are a 10 in my opinion and why. Look, I've been talking about a lot of classic albums that I think are worthy of a 10 out of 10, and I thought it would be interesting to come on here and talk about maybe some records here and there that come from these eras that are very well known, that are very popular, very influential, and yet I do not feel that they are a 10 out of 10. If I continue to do this, I would like to kick this off with Michael Jackson's Thriller. Yes, this album, in my opinion, is very much not a 10 out of 10, quite far from it. Look, that's not to take away from the moments on the record that are great. Of course, there are great moments on this record. Some of my favorite songs of all time, pop songs of all time, are on this record. Like, when it comes to pop sensations, you don't get much bigger, more relevant, and more game-changing than Thriller. Meaning the song, or, you know, freaking Beat It, or Billie Jean. Amazing, genre-defining, era-defining tracks that change the world of popular music forever, but the rest of the record is just not really as good. Actually, the gap in excitement between the hits and the deeper cuts on the LP is pretty vast. And not just merely because some of these cuts are slow burners. The track Baby Be Mine, second song on the record, I feel like the production on this one has not really aged all that well. Not only do the rhythms and rhythm guitars not have a whole lot of flavor or punch to them, but geez, like those little keyboard licks in between Michael's verses, it just sounds like some awkward elevator instrumental music. Moving beyond there, we have, of course, The Girl Is Mine with Paul McCartney, which is maybe the middest song that Michael has ever recorded and put on a record. The gosh darn girl is mine. Like, not only are the lyrics on this thing corny as hell, and I get that, you know, it's theatrical and everyone on the track is acting, but still, like, these are two very well-known musicians, and I can't even begin to fathom the woman who would be in a Michael Jackson, Paul McCartney love triangle. And the chemistry between these two on the track, I feel like, is not really there either. I feel like the only real point of interest of these two being on the same track is just that obviously they are massive music celebrities. There's nothing really that I get personally out of hearing both of their voices on a song. Human Nature, while at its core it's not a bad ballad, Michael's vibratos are so aggressive on this cut, it pretty much makes his singing performance worse for it. Plus, the fact that the experience, the overall flow of the record is pretty choppy too, and feels more like a compilation of hits with a few other spare songs on there that didn't go as hard. All of that compiles into a record that isn't awful, isn't bad. Obviously, it's very worthy of much of the praise that it's gotten over the years, but it's just not really a 10. And in my opinion, as far as like an overall album experience goes, I think Bad is way more solid. The ballads and slow burners on that one are a lot more interesting than what is being delivered here. Plus, more plentiful tracks. The hits on that record are also great. Michael's singing performances on that LP go a little harder and are a bit more aggressive too, as that was when he was like really in that, you know, extreme kind of ad-lib era. That record rocks a little bit harder as well. Plus, in my opinion, freaking Off the Wall is arguably the greatest disco album of all time. And as far as an overall like album experience, track to track, it's a smoother and more solid, consistent listen too. And look, yes, obviously Thriller is an iconic album and has a lot of iconic tracks on it that broke serious ground in the 80s and once again changed the game. I wouldn't say oh yeah, you know, the world of music would be totally the same if you got rid of Thriller. Not true at all, because the hits on it are so amazing and so essential and so incredible. That's how powerful and amazing and influential some of the tracks on this record are. Key word there is some of the tracks. A lot of the other tracks on the LP just really aren't up to snuff. The gosh darn girl is mine. There's not really a Michael Jackson song that gets a giggle out of me quite like that one. Continuity error, I shaved. But I have more to add here. I wanted to say and bring up the fact that I chose to classic review Thriller over any other Michael Jackson album at the point that I decided to do that review. I suppose this video does answer the age-old question, is every classic album I review, is every classic record I choose to review a 10 out of 10 like automatically? No, of course not. Not every classic album generally is a 10 out of 10. It's not even really a requirement for a classic to be a 10 out of 10. It just needs to withstand the test of time and be massively influential, make some kind of like cultural impact, which a record doesn't really need to be perfect in order for it to be so. Perfect from front to back in terms of its track list, in terms of its runtime. That's not the way most people consume music anyway, and Thriller is like exactly point proven, because there's so many strong, amazing, fantastic singles on that record. People like really rave about individual songs on that LP. It's really not about the album experience with that record. When people talk about the impact of that LP, the discussion is about key tracks and what they did, and the dances and the music videos and the so on and so forth, and the Quincy Jones production. I decided to talk about that record over like Off the Wall or over Bad, just because of how culturally relevant it is, and it's more of a point of discussion when it comes to the greater pop music landscape and Mike's discography. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Is Thriller a 10? If it's not a 10, then what would you rate it? And do you think Thriller is overrated? Underrated? Is it not getting enough praise? Has Thriller fallen off? I don't know. Let me know. You're the best. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Michael Jackson, Thriller, forever.